Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Build the Ultimate Theme Park in Planet Coaster. My name is Tyler Cedarwall, and it always will be. I don't plan on changing my name anytime soon, unless I commit a crime and need to change my identity or something to get away, but hopefully that won't happen anytime soon. Anyways, last episode, we began building our very first theme park in the coaster. What? Why did I just mix those two things around? The very first coaster in the theme park. I think my brain is dyslexic sometimes. I don't know why these things happen. Anyways, we are currently building the building that goes around the station. That sounded very repetitious. The building around the building. That doesn't seem like it should be a thing. We're constructing the building that goes around the station. Now this section of the building is actually just the first half of the building that is going to be attached to this coaster. So the building that we have now is just the loading station, and then after that we're going to have another large building that's filled with a giant laboratory that looks sort of like the game Mass Effect, if you've ever played that game. And it's kind of going to be like a Universal Studios ride where there's tons of awesome animatronics and scenery, and it's sort of like being on a movie / ride at the same time. And in the laboratory, you're going to be going through a normal laboratory at first. Everything is going to be peaceful, like most laboratories are, I assume, unless it's NASA or something, which I assume their laboratories are crazy, because you know how rocket scientists are, right? Is that even a stereotype for rocket scientists? No, I just made it up, but we should totally make it a thing. You're going to be going through a calm laboratory, and then all of a sudden, everything's going to start going awry. There's going to be sirens flashing, there's going to be explosions going off, there's going to be fire, and then as a last attempt to save your life, you're going to be blasted out of the laboratory onto the rest of the coaster. Now, I do want to give a forewarning that I plan on putting lots and lots of detail into these coasters. And when I say lots, I mean a lot. I'm going to be putting details into every single corner of these buildings and making them look as good as possible. I'm not going to cut any corners. I'm going to go all out just because I want these buildings to look so good, and I just want to put time into them and just do it right the first time. I want to make it just really epic and just jaw-dropping. And then also all the buildings I'm creating, I'm trying to make everything large to add a real sense of scale to the theme park. So when you walk through it, you're just almost overwhelmed by how large these buildings and coasters are around you. That's one of the things I like about theme parks, is they're practically a playground for adults, where everything is just so much larger and it's just daunting in a way. And the first thing I want to talk about today concerning this building is the roof, because that is the very first thing that we put on today. And I also want to apologize for not having a fly-through shot to start off the episode. I just didn't really have anything to really show off at the beginning of this episode because the coaster is still in its baby phase, and I don't really want to be showing it off like it's a finished product until it is more finished. So I'm just going to kind of hold off on those fly-throughs until we have a more finished coaster. Now, regarding the roof, I really love this wavy roof style. It allows your buildings to have a really sleek look to them that looks very futuristic. But I do have a complaint when it comes to the amount of options you have when it comes to roofs and walls and all of those types of things, especially in the futuristic theme. There's only one type of architecture in the sci-fi theme. When in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, there's about 3 different type of architectures in the sci-fi theme. Now, at the same time, I'm not going to complain too much because I'm almost positive that they're going to be adding more scenery in the future. So for now, I'm just going to take the tools that I have and try to do the most with them I can. Sometimes the best thing about having a more limited amount of tools is it really forces you to think outside of the box for the tools you actually have at that time, and it allows you to create more unique things than you would have created if you would have had a whole lot of options at once. And then I think what's going to happen in the future, once we start thinking out of the box with the scenery we have right now, we're going to get new scenery in the future, and we're going to be able to apply those new techniques we learned using the limited amount of scenery to the other new scenery we get to even create a larger and more vast amount of variety in the long run. I think it's really overall going to be a good thing that they're releasing the scenery in packs. Now, when you're designing and coming up with buildings for your rides, when you build the buildings, you want to actually think about the inside of the buildings and the outside at the same time while you're building them, because you want your buildings to look good on the outside as well as the inside. If you construct them thinking about only the outside, then the inside might end up turning out terrible and looking really ugly, and you'll have to restart from scratch or try to do a lot to fix the inside. Fortunately, there's a lot of freedoms you can take to fix things if you make them look bad, but it's still better to just think about both aspects at the same time. Now, I want to apologize real fast because in a few seconds there's going to be a jump cut because I forgot to record myself building for about 10 minutes Fortunately, as you saw, we did not lose too much. I only built the foundation for the second half of the building, and there's really nothing unique about that. It's just a square foundation, and you can see it right now. So I would say overall you didn't miss anything worth noting. Overall, I think I did you guys a little bit of a favor because you missed one of the more lame building sections. But right now what I'm doing is I'm building a very tall roof. So when I built this coaster, I had in my brain what I wanted the building around the coaster to look like. So right here I made the coaster go up really high because I wanted the coaster to go on top of the roof for the section of the building. And it kind of turned out perfectly. And I also love the inside of this room where it's really, really tall because it just makes the laboratory look really vast and large inside. Kind of like when you're playing Portal and you're just in one of those rooms and it kind of has like an infinite pit where you can't even see the bottom of it inside one of the rooms. And sometimes the ceilings go up that high. There's just really, really huge rooms every once in a while that really just give you a great sense of scale. And that's what I was ultimately going for with that. Okay, so now we are building the floor in the first main room of the laboratory. Now there is some tricks to building in this game because sometimes it's really hard and tricky to place things at specific heights because the height will change on you and you'll place one piece and then it'll automatically turn by itself. I think sometimes this makes it easier to build stuff because sometimes the game is like trying to help you out with building stuff faster, but then other times it's like, okay, what's going on? Why are you doing this? Now, some tricks to building is while you are building stuff, if you hold shift, you can control the height. It's one of the main things. Then while you're building, if you have an object and you want it to stay at the same height, you can hold the control button and it'll stay at the height that you place your previous object, so you can place a lot of pieces of floor at the same height at the same time. Now this next section I'm working on right here is the hallway before entering the laboratory. And I would like to imagine that it is where the scientists, you know, change clothes and get desanitized before going and altering the experiments, because you have to make sure to keep things clean. And then at the end of the hallway, there will be doors that open once the coaster begins. That way people aren't spoiled about what the laboratory looks like before they even start. Now really quick, I sped the footage up to about 20 times the speed for just a minute because I wanted to get done with this outside structure of the building, because all I'm doing is just placing a lot of pieces in the same exact spot. It's just placing walls one little bit at a time, and it was just taking a long time, and I really just want to get ahead to the good juicy stuff, which is the decorations inside the laboratory. But I was very proud of the roof I made for this building. I was trying to keep the roof very variant. I was trying to have parts with steep slopes, parts with wavy slopes, flat sections, not flat sections, which is the inclines, so it's kind of redundant. And I liked the way the outside of this building turned out a lot. Now, one thing I do want to talk about real fast is the sales of this game and future things that I hope they do with it. So I was curious to see how many copies this game has sold so far. And if the information I found is correct, they've already sold over 500,000 copies of this game on Steam and the Planet Coaster website, I believe. Now, I've had this game since it came out in alpha back in February, I believe, but I didn't play it hardly at all because the laptop I had at the time just couldn't handle it. So if I was to play it, it would be on my roommate's computer, and I just didn't really ever feel the need to play it that much since it was still in alpha and you couldn't do a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do. So I kind of just waited it out, but I'm very happy that it's sold over 500,000 copies so far, because I'm pretty sure, I don't know much about game sales, but I'm pretty sure that is a lot of copies to sell for a game, especially for a tycoon game like this. So I hope that success means they're going to continue supporting it for a long time. Now, one thing I do hope they add, and it's something I've never really been too much into when it comes to playing video games, is virtual reality, or the VR headsets. I think it would be so cool to be able to ride these coasters with VR headsets on and just look around and actually feel like you're riding a roller coaster. In fact, I couldn't think of a game that would be better for VR than this game, because who doesn't want to have build your own roller coaster and then ride it in virtual reality? That sounds amazing. Alright, so I just finished making all of the finishing touches when it came to the actual just walls and ceilings and floors for this building. So now it is time to start adding the scenery inside the building. We can make more adjustments to the walls and ceiling as we go along, but I wanted to start actually decorating the inside because that's what's actually going to make this building look nice. So I started by putting these panels across all of the walls, just to add some depth to the walls, because having just flat walls inside a laboratory was kind of lame and not as futuristic as I would want it to. Now, this actually took a super long time because even though it seems like I'm building this pretty quickly in the game, remember this is 5 times the speed to precisely place all of these different sections of wall took me so long, but it is worth it in the long run. And that is one of the main reasons I'm doing this series the way I am. I did have a few people complain in the comments saying they wanted me to do this commentary live and not to speed up the footage and to actually just play the game. But for the types of rides I'm going to be making, that would be unrealistic because it already took me forever to build this building as it was. Because this coaster is going to take a long time to build, even sped up 5 times the speed. Now just imagine having to watch me build the same coaster for 10 to 12 hours. That would just get exhausting and nobody would watch anymore. Now I really do want to do a more casual playthrough of the game in the future where I'm not trying to build my rides to the most intricate ability, where I'm playing the actual story mode for the game. But I don't want to do that until I have enough money to upgrade my computer so I can play the game nearly the maximum quality or graphics. Because right now all of my graphics are set to low, which is fine for this type of series because we're just building things and we're not really paying attention to the actual graphical capabilities. But for a legitimate playthrough, in order to compete with all the other Let's Plays of this game on YouTube, I can't just have the graphics be subpar. Right now the kind of charm of the series is to show off my creative abilities when it comes to building rides and buildings. So for an actual legitimate playthrough where I'm not trying to focus on my actual skills at the game, it wouldn't be able to compete, because why would somebody watch a really crappy quality Let's Play of the game over somebody who has a really nice computer and can play the game in full with all the graphics set to high. Now right here, this is one of my favorite sections of the laboratory, is these catwalks that I built, which really add more to the building. It makes it seem like there's more to the rooms than what you're currently in. That's one thing I try to do with the buildings I create in this game, is try to make it seem like there's more to the building than what you can currently see. You don't want people to think, oh, the only part of this building is the room I'm in, and I'll make it look, because that makes it seem fake. You want it to seem like it goes on into other rooms that you're not able to access. So you kind of got to give the illusion that there is more to this building and that it has functions other than just being part of a ride. That's how you add a sense of realism and immersion to the ride, and it allows the riders' creativity and imagination to fill in the rest of the building for you, so you don't have to actually build every single room. If it makes it seem like there's other rooms, if you really decorate the rooms you currently have to the best of their ability, then the riders will think, oh, there must be other rooms of this building that look just as cool, and it makes them wish that they could see those rooms as well, even though they don't actually exist. But if the writers fill them in with their brains, then it will save you a lot of work in the long run. And it's kind of cool how our brains do that. It'll fill things in that aren't actually there, and you really got to take advantage of that fact that our brains are more advanced than you would think. Now, one of the other things they added to this game when it comes to placing scenery that I really want to commend the developers on is allowing you to place pieces of scenery without having to lock on any sort of grid. It allows me to place all of these wall panels and computers and lights wherever I want, and whenever you're building on a grid, that makes things seem a lot more blocky and very unrealistic. But when you can place things at whatever angle you want, then it really allows for your imagination to fly and to really add a sense of realism that you couldn't do in the other roller coaster games. Even though I would add a lot of scenery to other rides, since you were stuck on that grid and that was it, you just couldn't do everything you wanted to. But now you literally can do everything you ever wanted to, which is one of the reasons why this game is the roller coaster designing game of my dreams. Now, there was one comment that I wanted to kind of bring up that was regarding the engineering aspect of this roller coaster that I just built, and they said the ride looks like it would be fun to ride on, but it would be terrible from an engineering point of view because the centripetal force would be really off and it would make the customers feel like they're flying into their bar. And they said this, but I honestly don't see any point of this coaster where you would feel like your centripetal force would be off. And your centripetal force is the force that makes you feel like you are centered into the cart. And I thought that I did the banking correctly on pretty much the whole entire ride, to the point where you wouldn't feel like you're being flown too far off into the coaster. Which, when it comes to riding a roller coaster, you want points where you feel like you're going to be flying off, but you just can't have that force be too much, or else you're like going to be flying into your bar and it's going to be kind of painful. But I thought this coaster was a very smooth ride overall, and I'm not sure what part you're talking about. So if you want to give some advice on things I can improve to make the coaster a more smooth experience, feel free to take a screenshot of the coaster at some point and like Photoshop a picture or do something, or even use Snapchat, I don't know, and like draw on the picture and point to where it's bad, because I do want to improve the coaster in every way possible. Also, as you just saw, I added vents to the ceilings because I wanted even the ceilings to have detail. And I think it's awesome that you can even place items on the ceilings, because I think a real laboratory would have vents on the ceilings for fumes to escape, maybe toxic vapors or whatever chemicals they're using that day, just an area for them to escape out of the room. And I'm glad you can do stuff like that, because I want the customer to be able to look at the ride from any angle and just see that whoever was building the ride really wanted to pay attention to every single detail. I also like you can even place extension cords on the floor one piece at a time. I didn't add that many extension cords because I wanted the laboratory to be clean, but I still thought it was cool to add them. And then there was this really cool moving animatronic of these lasers that I added to the laboratory as well. And I don't know exactly what they're there for, but they looked cool. And sometimes you just gotta add stuff because it looks cool. Now that door that I just added that allows you to go into the laboratory, that is our first example of a triggerable item in this game. Now there are these items called triggerable items that what you have to do is you select your coaster, and then you can select points on the coaster that if the cart or the train hits that point on the track, it'll trigger events to happen. For example, pieces of scenery like these doors, but you can also trigger off effects like explosions and sparks. You can even trigger off lights and sound effects. So that allows you to do so much with these rides and to really add a cinematic experience to your ride. Now I'll talk more about this later because I added a lot of triggerable events later in the ride when the laboratory is going to hell, but for now I just wanted to let you guys be aware of them. Now at around this point, I think I'm going to have to end the video because I'm actually recording this commentary before going to class, and I want to try to get this video out to you guys as soon as possible because I don't want you guys to have to wait too long for new episodes, because I want to get this series out to you as quickly as possible. But I am going to school full-time along with working pretty much 2 full-time jobs if you include making YouTube videos as a full-time job, which it kind of is, especially since I'm doing this channel now and Versus. But I am excited for you guys to see the next episode because we really get into some nitty-gritty effects for this coaster. So thank you all so much for watching this episode of Let's Build the Ultimate Theme Park. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. It means a lot to me, and I will see you guys in the next episode.